They tell you demons are monsters. They lie. Demons are mirrors. They show you what you could become if your pain grew teeth, if your hunger developed jaws, if your loneliness sprouted claws and came looking for company. They are the shadow that follows every step you take toward the light, waiting for the moment when your resolve flickers, when your faith wavers, when you finally admit that mercy is just weakness dressed in ritual. They do not come from hell. They come from here. From us, from the parts of ourselves we lock away and pretend do not exist until they grow strong enough to break the door. In a village where the river runs red with secrets older than memory, a father plays with his daughter beneath the surface. Bubbles of laughter rise through water that seems calm, deceptively peaceful, hiding ancient hunger in its depths. The man makes faces, silly gestures, anything to see her smile. Then bubbles of blood. The water claims him whole, body and soul dragged into darkness that does not discriminate between innocence and guilt. The village watches in horror. The village does nothing. And then the village celebrates when a false hero kills the wrong monster. Their ignorance a feast that draws the true predator closer. Their applause an invitation to the next atrocity. Only one man sees the truth through the veil of their self-congratulation. A monk with a children's book and no weapon. A hunter who cannot hunt. A protector who arrives too late. Every time, without fail, his inadequacy written in the faces of dead he could not save. His name is Xuanzang. He carries 300 poems for children and not a single sword. He believes in words when the world demands steel. He believes in mercy when the world requires murder. And he is wrong, again and again, until the moment when being wrong becomes the only path to being right. The village drowns in its own ignorance. They beat Xuanzang for speaking truth. They praise the charlatan who delivered them a corpse that was never their enemy. They offer him gold and jewels for his lie, while they spit on Xuanzang for his honesty. And when the real predator emerges, when tentacles thicker than ancient trees rise from waters that drink light, when the river itself becomes a mouth, they run. They hide. They die. They die screaming. They die praying. They die cursing the monk who warned them and whom they refuse to hear. Xuanzang stands alone on a collapsing platform, holding a baby that isn't his, watching a little girl named Qing being pulled to her mouth that has swallowed civilizations. The mother dives. The mother fails. The mother holds her daughter's legs with strength that crushes bone, while villagers form a chain of arms that cannot compete with tentacles that have evolved for millennia to not lose prey. They cut the girl's hair. The monster grips her body with a bone sickle. They sever the tentacle. The girl falls. The mother is held back. The demon emerges, black scales reflecting dying sun, yellow eyes fixed on prey. It devours a child in one bite. Wet sound echoing through the village, marking the end of a life that barely began. The mother, driven mad by pain that transcends human comprehension, jumps into the river with sickle in hand. The fish tiger annihilates her before her feet touch water. The impact brings down the bridge. A basket with a baby slips from the dead mother's arms, sliding down the inclined platform toward deadly waters. Xuanzang jumps to the opposite side, lifts the platform with his own weight, almost reaches the baby. The demon lowers the other side with precise tentacle, physics transformed into lethal weapon. Xuanzang grabs the charlatan warrior. They counterbalance together, temporary enemies united against common death. The baby flies upward. The platform oscillates. The monster advances with blood in its eyes. Someone cuts the rope holding the dead stingray. The corpse plummets, tons of putrefying flesh crushing the demon. Xuanzang runs, grabs a baby. But the fish tiger destroys the remaining pillars. The platform collapses. Xuanzang and another child are thrown into the waters. To avoid being devoured, Xuanzang activates the remaining seesaw system. Everyone must jump, he shouts. Throw the fish out of the water. Dozens jump. Insufficient. The creature weighs tons. Then she emerges, a villager, a colossal mass, brute force hidden under common appearance. She jumps. The platform protests. The fish tiger flies out, exposed to air for the first time in centuries. The monster transforms. Metamorphosis in slow motion. Scales retract. Tentacles withdraw. Mass reorganizes into humanoid form. No longer aquatic beast, but a thin man with long black hair, eyes that guard abyssal depths, pale skin that has never seen sun, terrible beauty that is masked for ancient predator. Xuanzang, still gasping, still holding the sleeping baby, extends a sacred cloth. He arranges artifacts with trembling hands, preparing the sealing ritual. He turns the crank of a musical trinket, sings a children's song about love and purity. Absurd contrast with the horror he witnessed. The demon does not calm. It advances and beats Xuanzang with pure fury, fists that were tentacles striking ribs and chin, leaving him fallen in bloodied mud, book of poetry scattered, instrument broken. Then she arrives. Duan, demon huntress, a silhouette that cuts through darkness itself. She doesn't speak. She only acts. She crushes the entity with fists that glow with metallic energy, martial art movements that flow like water and strike like rock. She places a defeated creature inside a sacred cloth sack, fabric woven with threads of ancient Buddhist sutras. The monster shrinks, transforms into a harmless furry keychain. She asks about Xuanzang's ability with tone that doesn't hide disdain. He shows his book, 300 children's poems, pages crumpled, cover faded. She laughs. Pathetic, her eyes say. She demonstrates her metal bracelets, artifacts that transform into weapons that defy physics. Xuanzang leaves with head low, body aching, pride aching more. Duan receives all the recognition. He failed to save Cheng, failed to save the mother, failed to save the father, failed to save anyone, except the baby who slept while the world burned. In the distant temple, among incenses that don't hide imagined smell of blood, Xuanzang collapses before his master. I am incapable, his voice breaks. I cannot defend the innocent. I cannot seal demons. I cannot be what I need to be. The master responds with absolute calm. You will find your power in the poems, not in written words, but in meaning they carry. A true hunter does not destroy. He removes only the dark soul. He leaves what is good to live, even if only as memory. Continue your hunt. Awaken what sleeps in you, not with force, but with understanding. The fish tiger is sealed, but imperfectly. Duan receives the credit Xuanzang craves, and the monk walks away, heavier with knowledge that he is not enough, lighter with determination to become what the world needs, even if becoming costs everything. Far from a village of drowned innocents, in a place that maps refuse to mark with precision, exists the land of pigs, an establishment that serves dinners no one should eat, to guests who never leave alive. The building squats on a landscape like a tumor, architecture that seems grown rather than constructed, organic curves suggesting stomach rather than structure, walls that appear moist with substances better not examined under light. A couple of warrior wanderers enters, seeking rest, bodies exhausted from roads that spiral without destination. They are received by a man strangely too solicitous, smiles stretching across features that don't quite move in coordination, eyes that remain dead while mouth performs warmth. He presents a house specialty. Cubes of meat, crispy, succulent, aroma promising satisfaction that transcends mere physical nourishment. The couple praises the decor, admires details that seem ancient beyond authenticity, cultural elements that should never coexist forced into grotesque harmony. They linger before a peculiar chandelier, shape suggesting agricultural pitchfork, but elegante eyes ornamented, transformed into object d'art that commands attention it hasn't earned. The chandelier is not what it seems. Nothing in that place is what it seems. Everything is hunger disguised as hospitality, consumption dressed as cuisine, death served with silverware. The attendant presents the master chef, Zhu Ganglai, figure that defies stable description, body seeming sculpted from wax left too near flame, face resembling festival mask, but possessed of living skin that sweats and twitches, movements that are simultaneously dance and threat, performance and warning. He does not speak, cannot speak, or chooses not to, voice that would shatter minds perhaps too dangerous for even demonic employment. He communicates through dance, through gesture, through sign responses to questions never asked. The girl from the couple insists, curiosity that kills with democratic efficiency, demanding words where silence has purpose. Zhu Ganglai screams, sound not human, fury pure of entity forced into inadequate form, Rage, a celestial being reduced to kitchen servitude. They attempt flight, survival instinct, finally piercing veil of illusion. Zhu Ganglai seizes his weapon, the chandelier that was never chandelier. Hunting fork forged from bone of previous victims. Prongs that shine with light not reflected, but generated from trapped souls. He ends them in seconds. Bodies at moments before laugh now added to batch that never ends. Meat that feeds machine that produces more meat. Cycle without beginning or conclusion. Xuanzang arrives, drawn as always to worse places. Karma magnetic and incomprehensible. Another receptionist greets him. Identical false solicitude. Identical smile failing to reach identical dead eyes. But Xuanzang sees through illusion now. Training purchase of blood and failure. The couple that seemed alive in memory of place lies fallen. Blood coagulated in patterns suggesting struggle. Bodies that fed what they admired. Pigs that are not pigs. Creatures containing corpses in grotesque forms. Succulents hiding rot beneath crispy exterior. The chandelier is mortal fork. Prongs shining with soul light. Trophy and weapon unified. Xuanzang declares himself hunter. Voice steady where once it trembled. Demands monster reveal itself. Abandoned masks that no longer deceive because observer has learned to see. The woman receptionist grips his arm. Force that is warning without words. Two options presented in tone suggesting imminent violence. Literal massacre of his face, or something worse that remains unverbalized. Threat implied through pressure of fingers against bone. Attack precedes choice. Duan emerges from shadows where she watched, assessed, waited for moment of maximum impact. Her machine gun of punches, metal bracelets moving at speeds creating afterimages, reduces receptionist to dust not human. Powder dispersing to reveal forms that should not exist in waking world. The hordes attack. Creatures that were guests, employees, solid enough illusions to kill. Manifestation of hunger that building itself generates. Duan unleashes bracelets in full glory. Circular throws destroying enemies and returning like obedient boomerangs to waiting hands. Sphere charged with light exploding in purification ray. Rings multiplying, transforming, creating geometric patterns of destruction that turn demons to fine sand. Memories dissolving into air that was already poisoned. Zhu Ganglai observes from shadows, assessing this huntress who differs from prey he has consumed. He approaches stealthily, steps silent as grave, murderous intention palpable as humidity. They fight, his movements mixing martial arts with animal instincts ancient as his corruption. Tentacles emerging from human form, forks seeking flesh to pierce and hold and feed. She fires piles of rings, hundreds of metallic circles, swarming like angry hornets. Absurd in number and velocity, they tear his human mask, revealing pig beneath, still insufficient for complete sealing. She attacks with maximum whirlwind, vortex of metal that should shred living tissue. He deflects, centuries of combat experience guiding each parry, pierces her head with fork in fatal precision. Duan jumps over him. Gravity merely suggestion for one who has transcended physical law. Places ring on his neck, touch that is seal and command simultaneously. Grotesque pig form emerges completely, body expanding from humanoid into mass of fur and tusks and too many eyes, true nature finally undisguised. Now sealing, and Xuanzang must participate. Contribution, he feared since understanding what hunting truly demands. Demon's essence, spiritual core maintaining material form, must be sucked through mouth, intimate contact with abomination, revolting every fiber being. Xuanzang obeys, swallows nausea physical and existential, becomes choked with pig inside him, presence writhing in stomach and soul, corruption carried until transformation can occur. He endures. He accepts. He becomes vessel for what he must eventually release. Duan pulls monster free, force gentle compared to what Xuanzang endured, throws it into cloth sack, gesture that should conclude horror. But sack is inadequate, sealing imperfect, insufficient for demon of such magnitude. Zhu Ganglai escapes, transforms into colossal boar, satanic fury mode, original and most dangerous form. Horns become lances, fur becomes living armor, eyes become embers of hatred burning across millennia of consumption without satisfaction. Temple collapses, structure never built for titan battle. They flee, wounded in body, worse in spirit, corruption still tasting a pig in Xuanzang's throat. In forests beyond destruction, among trees that witness without intervening, Duan confesses love that has grown despite rejection, despite absence, despite recognition that object of affection cannot reciprocate. Xuanzang retreats into darkness between trees, running from connection because connection means eventual loss, and loss is demon he cannot face, cannot seal, cannot transform to any poem he possesses. He seeks Monkey King, Sun Wukong, imprisoned 5 centuries beneath mountain that is also hand, geological formation that is also divine punishment, landscape that is also warning, only being who can teach killing of what cannot be killed, sealing of what escapes all containers, transformation of what resists all change, journey vertical through storms washing memory from skull, altitude that should not support life but do fall landing in water that is not water, substance between liquid and spirit, matter and intention. Monkey King is madness incarnate given form, hair of serpent still moving, independent organisms nested on scalp, eyes changing color with each blink, never settling, never revealing true gaze, laughter damaging hearing, frequency that wounds tissue. He teaches nothing directly, speaks in riddles and banana peels, communication designed to frustrate, to test, to break patience of seeker. But when Duan follows despite rejection, when she dances on water surface to lure pig demon back in a trap, Monkey King reveals power hidden beneath theatrical insanity. He transforms Zhu Ganglion to piglet, humiliation as control mechanism, reduction as mastery demonstration, absolute power displayed through casual cruelty, centuries of confinement not diminishing but concentrating capability. Duan seals creature, adds a collection of transformed demons, keychain trophies of victories won through force rather than understanding. Xuanzang feels suspicion he cannot name, cannot articulate, perhaps dares not acknowledge. Victory was too easy. Monkey King was too helpful, too cooperative, too willing for entity legendary for rebellion and chaos. Something waits beneath surface of this success, ancient and patient and hungry for freedom that confinement has only intensified. The lotus flower guarding entrance, white petal that seems decorative, feels suddenly heavy with significance not yet understood. The pattern crystallizes as they depart. Xuanzang rejects Duan's 1,000 proposal, 1,000 gesture, 1,000 attempt at connection. She rebuilds his destroyed book from scraps collected at battle sites, devotion bordering worship, love that has forgotten dignity in persistence. He tells her leave him alone, words that are knives dressed as requests, wounds inflicted by one who claimed protection as motive. She finally obeys, walking directionless into any path leading away from his cruelty, from hope finally exhausted. He reflects, too late, always too late, pattern of his existence, rhythm of his failure. The Monkey King speaks from his prison, voice of silk and buried fangs, seduction wrapped in apparent simplicity. Remove the lotus flower. It blocks my view of the moonlight. I only want to see beauty again, to remember what sky looks like when not viewed through roots and earth. Xuanzang complies, sees no danger in such simple request, no threat in gesture of apparent kindness. The flower was the seal. The petal that seemed decorative was foundation confinement, root of imprisonment, core containment that held chaos for 5 centuries. Without it, the Monkey King is free, and freedom for this being means not gratitude but vengeance, not service but retribution, not alliance but annihilation of everything that limited his infinite expansion. He descends upon Xuanzang with centuries of accumulated rage compressed into singular moment of release, rips hair from scalp in humiliating pillage, each tuft torn with deliberate slowness, each patch of exposed skin marking territory of dominance. Leaves him bald and broken and still reciting prayers that achieve nothing against force that predates Buddhism itself, power that was ancient before sutras were written, strength that laughs at compassion, as weakness it has always been. The 3 hunters arrive, drawn by spiritual disturbance that radiates from unleashed chaos like heat from inferno. The Kung Fu master, tiger, and praying mantis style perfected across decades of disciplined practice, attacks with techniques that have defeated demons and humans alike. Falls in 3 seconds. Devoured completely. Body that was weapon becoming nutrition. Skill that was hard-won dissolving into digestive process, without distinction between master and novice, expert and amateur. Mr. Almighty Foot, whose appearance is deception perfected. Tiny appendage hiding giant truth that transforms when need demands. He becomes colossal, foot that crushes mountains, that stomps valleys, that sends shockwaves through Earth's crust. Jumps like legend he is, colossal kick that should be final argument against any resistance. Insufficient, his crushing stomp, supreme technique refined across generations, meets Monkey King who is hard as nail that pierces rather than yields. The foot is pierced, return of pain that leaves master crying, trembling, small again in ways that transcend physical reduction. The important prince, specialist in magical swords that are more than metal, more than weapon, more than tool. Opens box containing entire arsenal. Collection that took lifetimes to assemble. Weapons that have names and histories and souls of their own. One sword flies, dragging monkey to sky that is test of mobility. Prison of altitude. Throws several more, indicating trajectories with finger that is maestro of death, conductor destruction, director of annihilation. Swords pursue, slice, attack from all directions in choreography of assassination that should be inescapable. Monkey King deflects with staff that materializes from air itself. Weapon that is extensionable rather than separate object, thought given form, intention made solid. The prince combines swords into Megazord of blades, fusion that is forbidden technique, and absolute power simultaneously. Combination that costs years of life for moments of supremacy. Colossal sword destroys staff, fragments falling like metal rain that scars landscape. Against King's armor insufficient, scales that are living shields, skin that is fortitude defying physics, existence that refuses to acknowledge damage as possibility. The scream that follows deafens, sound wave that is weapon independent of intention, byproduct of power that cannot be fully contained. Remains of 3 hunters reign. Pieces that don't maintain recognizable form. Organic matter distributed across the rain that has become abattoir. Everything is finished. All resistance ended. All hope extinguished. Monkey King turns to finish Xuanzang. Promise of death that is personal now. Vengeance that requires witness to appreciate its completeness. Audience to validate its justice from perspective of chaos. Duan intercepts. She knows. Has always known. Her rings are useless against this magnitude. Skills insufficient for the scale. Love unrequited until this moment when requital no longer matters because time has expired. Opportunity has passed. Possibility has evaporated like morning mist under sun that gives no quarter. She attacks anyway. Not because victory is possible, but because absence of victory is unacceptable. Because surrender is demon worse than any she has hunted. Because love that does not act as love that dies without even dignity of having tried. She falls. A body that was weapon becoming broken thing. Instrument that played music of combat now silent, irreparable. She asks, dying, voice that is whisper against hurricane of Monkey King's presence. Question that has defined her entire existence since first meeting. What is your true feeling? And Xuanzang, finally, when time has expired and cost is fully evident, and there is nothing to gain from honesty except honesty itself, answers, I truly loved you. Too late. The most devastating phrase in any language, any culture, any time. Words that arrive after breath has ceased, after consciousness has fled, after possibility of reception has ended. Duan dies without hearing or hears without capacity to respond, or responds in silence that is indistinguishable from absence. And Monkey King, chaos incarnate, cruelty perfected, destroys even her body. Denial of rest, erasure of evidence that she ever existed, that she ever loved, that she ever fought for love that was requited only when requital became meaningless. This is the crucible, the transformation that failure enables. Xuanzang stands alone among ruins of mountain and hope, surrounded by remains of hunters who were better than him, remains of love that was truer than him, remains of illusions that were more comfortable than truth he now must face. And something awakens, not external deity, descending in rescue, not borrowed power from master or text or tradition. The Buddha within, potential that existed always, unrecognized, unacknowledged, undeveloped, activated by loss that cannot be calculated, cannot be negotiated, cannot be reversed through any action available. The stone titan manifests, mountain given form and intention, architecture of Omade walking. Monkey King destroys it, shatters it, reduces it to rubble that is irrelevant because source is inexhaustible, because manifestation was demonstration, not defense, because Buddha within does not require protection to persist. The Buddha's palm extends, hand becoming meteor, becoming planetary, becoming cosmic, growing beyond proportions that physics allows, beyond scales that geometry describes, beyond measures that mathematics contains. Open gesture of acceptance rather than closed fist of rejection, offering rather than attack, embrace rather than strike. Monkey King transforms into Ozaru, demonic super scion, form that defies lesser gods, that challenges heaven itself, that represents rebellion against all limitation made manifest and muscular and screaming. The palm meets him in silence that contains magnitude too vast for sound, too deep for vibration, too absolute for resonance. Impact that is not collision but communion, not conflict but contact, not combat but comprehension finally achieved through pressure that does not break but reshapes, does not destroy but transforms, does not punish but purifies. Purification, not destruction. Dark soul removed with surgical precision that is also compassion, evil extracted and good that remain preserved. Monkey King transformed into best version of himself rather than annihilated for his worst. Possibility, redeemed rather than threat eliminated. Master instructs from absence that is also presence. Follow your sacred path. Protected by three you purified. They accompany you not as prisoners, but as guardians who chose to serve, who chose transformation over destruction, who chose you over chaos. Xuanzang walks. Heavier now, not from fatigue of body, but from memory of what was lost, what was gained through loss, what was learned through pain that cannot be forgotten, without losing lesson itself. Duan accompanies in ways that are not flesh, in poems recited that she never heard, in silences that are not empty because she fills them with absence that is presence, in each step toward west that is destination and metaphor and endless becoming without conclusion. The journey continues through territories where geography operates on dream logic, where physics is local custom rather than universal law. Valleys of mist with fingers damp seeking entry through pores, through eyes, through any opening that allows connection. Mountains that shift when unobserved, rearranging themselves in patterns suggesting intention rather than geology, consciousness rather than mechanism. Rivers that flow upward, defying gravity with casual arrogance that suggests laws of nature are suggestions, valid only where belief in them remains strong enough to enforce. Fish Tiger speaks in dreams, voice bubbling like water in drowning lungs, telling a celestial origin twisted by jealousy of human joy, of immortality that was cursed disguised as gift, of eternal existence without capacity for growth or change or love that transforms. Pig whispers during waking hours, voice that grunts and snorts, but carries meaning clear as any human speech. Speaking a gluttony that began as legitimate hunger, appetite that grew beyond biological need into metaphysical void without bottom, consumption that became substitute for connection, eating others' attempt to fill emptiness that only deepened with each feast. Monkey King, silent longest, pride that is armor against vulnerability, finally speaks in moments of exhaustion when guards lower and truths emerge unbidden. Rebellion against heaven was never truly about heaven, about injustice of celestial hierarchy, about unfairness of divine order. It was about limitation itself, about prison of power without purpose, about freedom that was never wanted until taken away, about chaos that was not preference but only alternative known to being who could not accept structure without understanding its necessity. They encounter settlements of different tyrannies, each illustrating aspect of demonic influence that does not require monster form to destroy. Memory traders who sell childhood to those who wish to experience innocence vicariously. Commerce that creates debt compounding across generations, each soul recollection requiring purchase of another's to fill void created. Face traders who exchange identity until original is lost. Scars of identity accumulating with each exchange. Marks that become visible when viewed with proper attention. Authenticity, rare luxury, and economy of selfhood. Mirror cities where inhabitants wander as ghosts in labyrinths of own multiplied images, having forgotten which reflection is original, lost in infinite regression of selves that are all equally real and equally false. Xuanzang resolves each not with force but with presence, not with weapon but with question, not with ceiling but with willingness to be vulnerable in ways Duan never permit herself, ways that cost her life and gain her only love spoken too late. The poems adapt. The book grows. Duan's presence persists in patterns that are not quite coincidence. A fighting technique observed in Distant Traveler who moves with her particular economy of motion, a phrase overheard in Market that carries her cadence of speech, a silhouette glimpse in Twilight that suggests her proportions before resolving into stranger who knows nothing of her existence. Xuanzang understands these not as hauntings, but as continued conversation, her teaching extending through medium of his own perception, which he has permanently altered by existing and departing, by loving and being loved too late. The Guardians evolve in their service. Transformation that is not complete, but ongoing, not finished but forever becoming. The fish tiger learns water as connection rather than isolation. Each river cross reminder of interdependence rather than boundary. Each current carrying memory of all other waters across vast distances that physics cannot explain, but poetry can describe. The pig discovers hunger satisfied through legitimate means carries nourishment that consumption of others never provided. Each shared meal filling voids that gorging only deepened. Each companionship offering sustenance that isolation denied. The Monkey King finds in service the purpose greater than self the freedom that rebellion against external authority could never achieve. Each act of protection liberating him from prison of solipsism that was true confinement all along. They approach western regions where sacred texts await, landscape becoming increasingly surreal. Distances compressing or expanding according to emotional state of traveler, directions shifting based on intention rather than magnetic pole, time flowing differently for each party member according to need and capacity, and willingness to be changed by passage. The final confrontation approaches. Not demon in conventional form, not monster with scales and tentacles and too many mouths, but concept that organized all previous opposition, abstraction that is manifested through countless bodies without being limited to any single one. The idea that power must be exercised, that existence is competition with winners, and losers rather than collaboration with participants. That strength demonstrates itself through domination rather than support, through control rather than empowerment, through destruction of other rather than development of self. This concept manifests in configuration that threatens to consume not merely bodies, but possibility of transformation itself, not just individual hunters, but very methodology that makes hunting meaningful. Xuanzang stand with guardians at his sides. Poems in memory. Duan's ring on his finger where to become warm with body heat and constant contact. The Buddha's palm remains available, ultimate weapon against ultimate threat. Technique of absolute resolution, used once and known to be usable again. But repetition would be failure. Confirmation of force against force paradigm, rather than transcendence. Proof that he has learned nothing from loss that costs everything. He opens a book, not to recite verses already written, but to receive content that has not yet existed. Pages revealing new material that appears as he watches. Verses describing this exact moment with precision that suggests authorship by one who has seen this confrontation before, from outside time, from perspective of completed journey looking back at in-progress traveler. Words that provide not instruction but presence. Companionship of all who face similar darkness and chose response other than destruction. Company of hunters who became what they hunted and emerged changed rather than consumed. The abstraction attacks. Negation seeking to unmake meaning itself, to dissolve purpose into randomness, to reduce choice into determinism, to prove that all compassion is weakness and all weakness deserves elimination. Xuanzang reads on, whisper against hurricane and negation, persistence that defies entropy by refusing to become its opposite, by refusing to fight on terms that would confirm enemy's framework. The Guardians contribute essences not as weapons, but as witnesses. Their transformations complete enough to testify to possibility of change without being consumed by doubt of their own legitimacy. Their service evolve enough to demonstrate that even demons can choose differently than their nature suggests. The confrontation extends across a measurable subjective duration, time that is not measured in seconds or minutes or hours, but in choices made and unmade, in possibilities considered and rejected, in transformations attempted and achieved or failed. It ends not with victory, but with continuation, abstraction unable to negate presence that doesn't oppose directly, that simply persists despite all pressure toward dissolution, that endures not through resistance but through flexibility that allows bending without breaking, that permits deformation without destruction, that accepts change without losing continuity. This is the hunter's true power. Not strength that shatters, but resilience that transforms. Not force that dominates, but flexibility that remains intact through transformations that would shatter more rigid forms, more absolute positions, more unyielding commitments to single way of being. The sacred texts are reached. Not destination that concludes journey, but waypoint that confirms its value. Knowledge that validates what experience taught rather than replacing it with information that would make experience unnecessary. Xuanzang understands now that his mission has no true ending, that each demon seal reminds of countless others still free, that each purification is temporary state requiring maintenance through continued practice rather than permanent solution achieved once for all time, that enlightenment is not event but process, not achievement but commitment. He turns eastward, direction that is also metaphor, path that is different though geography remains same, because traveler is changed, because observer determines what is observed, because meaning is made not found. The guardians travel as companions rather than obligated servants, their service having evolved into friendship that is chosen rather than compelled, into alliance that is desired rather than enforced, into family that is constructed rather than inherited. The poems continue adapting, book never complete because experience never stops generating verses, because each encounter creates new material, because each transformation requires new expression. Duan's memory remains vital. Not wound to be healed through forgetting, but integral component of self that includes all who shaped it through contact both gentle and violent, through presence that was welcome and absence that was devastating, through love that was reciprocated too late to savor, but not too late to save him. The darkness remains loose. Demons continue predations. Human ignorance continues complicity. Fear continues corruption and capacity for love. Transformation of vulnerability into weakness, of openness into naivety, of compassion into foolishness. But somewhere in that darkness walks a hunter who learned that light is not opposite of shadow, but its transformation. That same energy can illuminate or consume depending on channel to which it flows. That journey toward west is also journey toward self, and both continue as long as breath allows and perhaps beyond. Xuanzang recites one final poem. Words are his own now, added to 300, verse 301 that describes this exact instant. Monk walking west with 3 demons and 1 ghost, all of them saved from themselves, none of them free from memory. Each step choice to remain open in world that rewards armor, that punishes vulnerability, that destroys tenderness while praising strength that is merely rigidity disguised. The fish tiger ripples in water that reflects stars, celestial light that is reminder of origin before jealousy, before corruption, before fall from grace that was not necessary but chosen. The pig grunts contentment after shared meal, hunger that is satisfied without consumption of other, nourishment that feeds without destroying source. The monkey king walks with staff that is no longer weapon but walking stick, support rather than threat, aid rather than attack, companion rather than tool. And Duan? She is here, in ring that warms his finger with constant presence, in silence between heartbeats that is not empty because she occupies it, in certainty that love spoken too late is still love, that transformation requires loss as price, that only demons truly conquered are those we first recognize in ourselves, accept as aspects of own being, integrate rather than project onto others who become enemies, because we cannot acknowledge what we share with them. The journey continues. The darkness waits. The hunter walks on, unarmed and therefore invulnerable, because only weapon that ever mattered was never to wield. It was choice, made fresh in each moment, to see demon and see human simultaneously, to hold both in gaze that doesn't flinch, to sing song that reminds both of what they could become if they allowed transformation rather than demanding destruction. The film we have traveled through is Stephen Chow's journey to the West. Conquering the Demons, released in 2013, directed by Chow and Derek Kwok. Prequel to classical Chinese novel that reimagines origin of Tang Sanzang before he becomes monk who will accompany Monkey King on legendary pilgrimage. It is film of grotesque beauty, where horror and comedy intertwine until distinction collapses, where every laugh is shadowed by recognition that amusement requires distance from suffering we should not permit ourselves, where every triumph is stained by awareness of cost that made it possible. What makes this film essential viewing is not spectacle, though spectacle is considerable. It is philosophy of hunting that film embodies. Most demon narratives offer destruction as solution, violence as answer, force as resolution. This film offers digestion. Hunter must become vessel for demon's essence, must carry corruption inside until transformation occurs, must risk being consumed by very contact that promises salvation. This is not metaphor. This is method. Only way to change what is dark is to illuminate it from within, to know it intimately, to become what you hunt in order to demonstrate that change is possible. Xuanzang's book of 300 children's poems is not weakness disguised as strength. It is strength that appears weak, radical assertion that innocence persists despite evidence to contrary, that simplest words carry power when spoken with complete commitment, that nursery rhymes conceal demons because demons were themselves children once, before corruption, before hunger, before long fall from celestial grace that was not inevitable but chosen, that can therefore be unchosen. Duan represents alternative path, force without understanding, sealing without transformation, victory that is merely postponement rather than resolution. She is not wrong. Her methods work, but they work temporarily, and they cause the connection she most desires. Her love for Xuanzang is film's true tragedy, not because unrequited, but because requited too late, because both characters trapped in patterns they cannot break until breaking becomes only option remaining, until loss makes choice that was always available finally unavoidable. The Monkey King is chaos incarnate, but also possibility. Imprisonment unjust by human standards, 5 centuries for rebellion against heaven, release that is catastrophe. Yet transformation through Buddha's palm suggests that even most entrenched darkness can be illuminated, not destroyed, not punished. Change. This is film's ultimate offering. Hope that is not naive, that acknowledges demons remain loose, that journey never truly ends, that more loss awaits, more failure, more moments when love arrives too late, but also more moments of choice, more opportunities to open rather than close, to sing rather than scream, to carry darkness until it becomes light rather than banish it and pretend it never existed. The demons are loose. The darkness is hungry. The hunter walks on. End of journey. Until the next story.